Welcome, and thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the Women's Broadcast Television Network Spotlight Expert Show, and I'm your host, Shay Vaughn. WBTVN is the all-women's internet television station with content that's created by women and for women. And joining us today on our WBTVN Expert Spotlight Show is an amazing woman, and I want you to kind of lean forward and listen, because this girl knows what she's talking about, and you're going to love what the subject is. We're going to be talking about why the current sex education sets us up to fail. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Jacqui Oliver, the technique modifier at the end of the problem, is considered by many to be a global expert in solving anxiety and sexual dysfunctions by providing relevant sex education answers to solve and prevent common sex problems. Today, we're going to be talking about the current sex education sets us up to fail. Jacqui, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shay. It's so good to be here.
Well, it's our honor to have you here today. And just, before we get started, I want the audience to know something, about you. So tell me a little bit about, growing up and how you got to where you are today.
So, same as many other experts, really. I had a problem, didn't know how to solve it. No one else knew how to solve it. And so I figured out the answers for myself. Okay. So I had been sexually abused for a year when I was a teenager, when I was 16 years old. And so I know how it feels to feel disempowered and to feel like you have your power taken away from you. It also led to an awareness. It's like, well, what if I'm not able to function normally as a human being when I become an adult? Exactly. And so when I became an adult and I entered into adult relationships, I wasn't able to orgasm. And I was within the 80% of women find it difficult to achieve orgasm during intercourse. And then 20% of that 80% can't orgasm at all. And I was in that 20% of the 80%. I never experienced it. I know why now. But at that point in time, I had no idea. And then I met an amazing guy, and we were in a relationship for 15 years. And to the rest of the world, we had the perfect relationship to the rest of the world.
Gotcha.
But within that relationship, there was me who was always disappointed that I couldn't achieve orgasm. And we were together for 15 years, and that's a really long time.
Wow.
To not feel fulfilled as a human being. And like many women in that position, I started losing interest in sex. I'd see answers in a magazine, or I'd hear something on the radio, or I'd find out about something and I'd be all excited about trying it out with my partner, and then it wouldn't work, and then came the disappointment, and then my lack of desire for sex again. And over this period of time, he actually developed an erectile dysfunction problem. And of course, that was linked to my problem, because I'd be excited about sex, then didn't want it, and then, oh yeah, let's try this, and no, that didn't work, no, don't want it anymore. And that caused a great deal of strain on our relationship. And a few days before his 45th birthday, he came into my office and he says, "You know what, Jacqui, I think I've done everything I came here to do." And I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. Now, that afternoon, I had been reading a magazine article, and gosh, I hope I don't take up all our time just telling the story, but it's very cool.
I love the story, and it's important.
Yeah. So I was reading this article, a woman's magazine someone had given to me, and it said the reason why many women don't orgasm is because they don't allow themselves to enjoy sex. And I was like, well, gosh, I hadn't thought of that. It seems so obvious. And that night, we engaged sexually. I didn't try and make any excuses, and it was very nice, and I could feel Russell's enthusiasm for my enthusiasm. I didn't achieve orgasm, but it felt really nice, and it felt like I was a beginning. And so the next morning, I patted over the bed. It's like, oh, he's not there. It's like, oh, no big deal. If he can't sleep, he'd go out into the living room and just sit on the couch and watch the stars. And so I dashed to the bathroom and cleaned my teeth, get rid of that morning breath. I was all ready to pounce on him and start off where we had started the night before. And he was just sitting on the couch and very peaceful expression on his face. I thought, oh, I don't have the heart to wake him. That would just be mean. And so I thought he must be cold. I grabbed a blanket and I started shaking the blanket out and I bashed him in the side of his face. And I was like, oh my gosh. But he didn't move. And I looked at him and his mouth had all caked over. Right? And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. He was dead. And I was like, I started shaking him. And I was like, this is not part of the plan. This is not part of the plan.
Exactly.
But obviously it was part of the bigger plan. And so that was the night, that was the morning of our 15th anniversary together. 3 days shy of his 45th birthday. He was 10 years older than me. And that was the day that I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to find the answers to solve sex problems. All our friends took off for the four corners of the earth, right? Whoa, life can be really short. Jacqui went in search of the elusive orgasm, found it over a period of time, but I also wanted to find the answer to male sexual dysfunctions as well, because there was no way that I wanted to enter into another relationship not knowing how to fulfill or be fulfilled. And that's when my journey started.
Right. Wow, what a story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that there's many stories out there, maybe not similar. I mean, somebody doesn't die in the end. That's just catastrophic to me. I mean, I'm like, wow, wake up to, peacefulness, gonna, pick up where you left off. And here we find that he's passed on. I mean, that just had to be just horrible. But actually, like all things, it opens things, one thing goes and the door opens, and we have to open those doors and move forward and find what is the issues here. What is it that, because you certainly don't want to take all your problems to the next relationship. No. And so, I think women just in general have been suffering with some of these issues for a very, very long time. And I think you're absolutely right. They don't know how to really enjoy sex. Instead, they're acting.
Yes.
I think this is exactly what they're supposed to do, and lead him on that everything is wonderful, and it's not. And your heart is breaking, and you want to be honest, but you're fearful that you're going to be rejected. There's a million things behind that, right, Jacqui?
Absolutely. And that's for both partners, male and female.
Exactly. It doesn't go just, in one direction. So tell me a little bit about the protection versus, helpful knowledge that one should, learn about.
Right. Well, if you remember back to, I remember back to my sex education class, and all of us teens, we were lined up at the door. We were ready to go thinking, yes, this is when the great mystery is being solved. And then we're given the equivalent of a car, a key, a fuel voucher, and no idea of how to drive our vehicle.
Yeah, put the engine on, right? Turn that engine on, because it's a lot of the problems that we have are really right there. I talk about those things all the time.
And that's right. It's like so many men lose their erection hardness during foreplay, for example, and their partner will think, oh, he doesn't love me anymore. He's not attracted to me. What if he's having an affair?
Yeah.
And
yet, go right to the bitter end of it. There's no traveling on that. It's just, this is what we perceive.
And the thing is, what's really interesting is that he just hasn't given enough arousing signals to his brain, because he's been so focused on making that experience amazing for her, he hasn't thought at all about himself.
Right.
And so his brain hasn't received continued to receive arousing signals. So the brain, in its great wisdom and energy power saving, just switches off the erection. It's like, oh, you obviously don't need this. You're not thinking about this. You're not aware of any sensations. Okay, we'll switch it off for you.
Exactly.
And then, of course, when a woman's had enough foreplay, she says, okay, put it in.
Yeah.
And this guy's going, sure. Oh, where'd it go? Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. And then he starts freaking out. Whereas if he had received a relevant sex education that provided answers to how the mechanics work, step by step, not just male puts penis in, eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a very minimal sort of a sex education. That's a basic sex excuse me, let me just have a mouthful of water.
Yeah, of course. I want to share with the audience too that you're actually on with us and you're in Australia.
Not
in
I'm in New Zealand.
New Zealand, okay. Okay, I had Australia in my mind, but nevertheless, you're not just around the corner.
Technology is very cool. I get very passionate and then all these words come and then it starts getting dry and then I start making up new words.
There you go. So New Zealand. So we're proud to have her on today. All right. So, one of the things that I really think more than anything else, because I love what you were just talking about right now, is that so many times somebody's so interested in making sure the other person has a good time. I don't know that I think women are more like that than men. And maybe there's more men that are like that than I know or realize. But because so many things that you read, it's all about, their thoughts is just get on and get off,
Let me clarify something for you right now.
Good.
Okay, I gave you statistics for women earlier on. 80% find it difficult to orgasm during intercourse. Now, that's also related to the male's ability. See, 30% of men experience premature ejaculation.
Yes.
40% of men over 40 experience erectile dysfunction. So that's making it more difficult for the woman to have enough time to get herself to that point, right? I can actually teach women how to just switch into the right thought and action sequence and keep popping out orgasms every 20 or 30 seconds. After about 10 minutes, she's like, I'm so done.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Okay, I'm exhausted.
Right? And that's during intercourse without touching herself.
Okay.
Right. Now, getting back to what you said just before, 30% of men ejaculate early. Now, this is often caused by when they're growing up, masturbation takes place very quickly. And so they train themselves to ejaculate early. Now, when they're with a partner, they still have the program in their brain that makes them very aware of the sensations, very aware of how aroused they are. And so the brain is only receiving arousing signals. There is nothing to break up those arousing signals. And so many women who are partnered with men who have premature ejaculation think the guy's just totally selfish. And he is, but he doesn't mean to be.
Right.
He doesn't know.
Energetic, I would guess, on that afterwards. But, yeah.
And it's just because he doesn't know the sequence required. If we use the driving the car analogy again, he's got his foot firmly planted on the accelerator, and then he kind of realizes and so he jams his foot on the brake, and then he might lose his erection hardness.
Right.
Many men oscillate between the two problems.
Right.
But when you have a proper sex education, you know how to start your car. You know how to move through the gears in the right order with the right timing. So it's a very enjoyable ride for all who are traveling.
And that's what we need. And I also think that communication just has to be a big part of, I think that women and men both just, don't want to talk about it because then they have to, realize that there's an issue here and they don't want to bring that to the surface. And I'm that girl that definitely believes that if things aren't, talked about or addressed, they're not going to go away. They're just going to be there every single time.
So there are two parts to this problem. One is we don't feel confident speaking about sex because we're never allowed to talk about sex. Sex education is all about safety. It's not about technique and understanding a partner's needs. And also we don't like to feel like we're failing as a human being. And if we're admitting to these problems, we're admitting to the fact that we're failing as a human being. And so we avoid talking about the subject. But the other thing is that also, along with sex education, we're not taught about emotional resistance. We're taught from a very young age that it's not acceptable to express our emotions.
Exactly.
Right? Now, we don't
need sex, like you're saying, yeah.
I'm actually just about to publish a book called Doing This One Thing Will Change Your Life Forever. And it's about emotional resistance and how to allow every emotion to pass with the ease of a sneeze. So it neutralizes that resistance within seconds. See, when we feel uncomfortable talking about a topic, it's because an emotional response has been triggered. And what have we been taught since early childhood is to push that emotion down. We don't want to feel worse, we want to feel better. And yet what people don't realize is at the end of the emotional response program in your brain is the most amazingly beautiful sense of connection with yourself. Right? So there is the resistance that we have that we've got the problem. There is the resistance that we have that it's uncomfortable to talk about. There is the resistance that we have that it's turning our mind to custard. And then there's the resistance we have that when we do actually get to communicate it, all our words come out backwards.
Yeah.
And all tangled up. And then we don't heard because we couldn't communicate clearly.
Absolutely. Wow. There's a lot in it. So, why do parents, really, aren't probably the best educational opportunity for children to learn, about sex?
Because they themselves didn't receive relevant sex education answers, right? And I was on a podcast with some doctors a couple of weeks ago, and I said to them, well, unless you can detail for your teenager the complete start to end procedure for sex, so their brain understands the sequence required for a male to get hard, stay hard, and only ejaculate when his partner wants him to.
Right.
For a female to get turned on, stay turned on instead of thinking about shopping and everything else that needs doing, and then easily achieve orgasms whenever she wants to, then you're not the ideal person to give your child that sex education because you yourself don't know the sequence.
Right.
And I recently had a session with a 19-year-old who had premature ejaculation. Solved his problem so easily. This is how it works. And then he calls back, oh my gosh, it works. This is so easy. I can't believe how easy this is. I'm trying to send my dad to you.
Yes.
Because when I asked him, I told him that I have this problem and I asked him what I should do about it. He says, I'm sorry, son, I don't know. I also have that problem.
Well, that's how communication is all about, because you don't want to say something until you know somebody else's, experience of that, and then you just can't say enough. Now you want to get it, out there, and you want to learn what you can do to solve that and live a happier life because of it. So, yeah. And it makes sense. I just wanted to say, and it makes sense that, of course, parents, if they didn't experience those things, having a healthy, sex life, then of course, how do they, pass it on, to their children or answer questions that they don't know. They don't know. And you would think that, since there's so many people doing it, that thered be good answers out there, but there really isn't.
Absolutely. I have so many clients who have been everywhere They've been to sex therapists, they've been to urologists, they've been to doctors, they've been to medical specialists, they've tried herbs, they've tried medicines, they've done supplements, they've done Kegel exercises, they've done everything. And some of these treatments have been really expensive and taken a lot of time. And all of the time, they've always felt like they're just going around the subject and wondering if it's ever going to be solved. And then they come to me and it's solved within 1 or 2 sessions.
That's great.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how do you set yourself up, and your teams to really, have experienced the success of it all?
Okay. Well, I created pre-recorded programs because I know from experience that a lot of people don't want to have these conversations and admit that they have the problem. So I created a male program, Harden and Control, and I created a female program, Easily Achieve Orgasms. And what these programs do, so they're on a private membership site. You can watch the videos on the site, download the PDFs, or just download PDF slides so that you can educate yourself on those start to end procedures for sex without having to have a conversation, without having to be rushed. And I set these up so that they are equal to parents and teens alike. I have parents who buy them for their teenager, and then they go through the program as well because they're learning from it, they're enhancing their relationship and their sex life with their partner, and they know that their teenagers are getting the very best sex education that's going to set them up for being able to fully function in an adult relationship. And this is the vital sex education that every teenager is looking for. They are desperate for this information. And what happens is that when they're not taught this education, then they try and find out about sex themselves. Now, if, for instance, a male masturbates and he experiences premature ejaculation, he's going to keep finding sexual partners to practice what he learns about watching porn or reading books. Right. If he doesn't have information that his brain understands as a logical sequence for sex, then he's going to keep having sex with many partners to try and find the answer, to try and figure it out. And it's the same with women. When young women have been sexually abused, they're wondering about their ability to achieve orgasm. And of course, because they're wondering about it during that intimate time with any person that they're with, they're not able to because their brain isn't receiving the correct sequence of signals. And so she's going to have sex with multiple partners, trying to make sure that her body works so that when she finds someone that she really likes, she knows that she's going to be able to succeed.
Yes. Well, I mean, you make it sound so simple. You talk about a lot about the system and doing things in an order.
Yes.
The complete start to the end, I guess you might say. And how important really is that?
It's of absolute importance because while we can't change the way our brain responds to signals, we do have complete control over the signals that we give to our brain when we have this advanced knowledge of how it works. For instance, with a male, he needs to, if I just gave him the strategy for stopping erectile dysfunction or preventing erectile dysfunction, because the same sequence that stops a problem from happening also prevents it from happening.
Right.
But if he only focused that way, he would go vroom along the end of the arousal scale and he'd ejaculate immediately.
Right.
Right? Because he's only applied the accelerator and he hasn't applied any braking when he's felt that, oh, it's starting to feel a little bit unsafe here. This is what I do to slow it down. And every woman loves this technique when her male understands hard and in control, because it is amazing for her. Absolutely amazing for her. Just like when a woman understands the female sequence to be able to get turned on, stay turned on, and easily achieve orgasms, then her partner feels like she's totally engaged in that act with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And like we're taught on porn, it's hard and fast and hard and fast, but it's not hard and fast. That's a really bad idea, because most women, that will bring her out of the orgasm program. And yet so many times it's like we don't know. It's like, do we go in or out or in? And then we feel like we're out of sync with our movement. And then that can switch us out of our orgasm program.
Of course.
So this is what I mean by that complete sex education, so that you understand your role as being one of two.
Yeah.
And how to bring, for the female, how to bring most of your attention on yourself in the most delicious way, which appears to be selfish, and yet you need it for your brain to understand that you want to orgasm.
Yeah.
So these are the thoughts to bring your focus onto yourself. These are the actions to deliciously enhance your awareness of what's going on with yourself, so that you're totally present within that sexual situation, and you're just feeling the most dynamic, amazing, emotional and sexual connection with your partner.
Right. What age do you think that the kind of education that you teach is appropriate for someone growing up, boy or girl that's growing up?
I would say in general, about 17, because most boys and girls have entered into sexual relationships at that stage, and you don't want them to get into the habit of having a constant problem that they're worrying about. What I find is that when you explain to someone, it's like included in both of my programs, is how to train your mind to stop thinking negatively about sex, how to deal with that emotional resistance, which you can then apply to the rest of your life. And that instills the complete knowledge, instills a sense of confidence.
Right.
And then understanding how to deal with the emotion, it means that they're not seeking a sexual connection so that they can feel better about themselves.
Right.
So what I've found is that when young people have this education, and it's a complete education, then they don't need to experiment with random people that they don't have a connection with. Right. To see if something works, to try and feel better about themselves, because they know from the insights gained from the program how to feel better about themselves, how to turn that emotion around just with the ease of a sneeze.
Well, and I also think too, from listening to you, that one of the things that I like is that you really kind of tell yourself that you want the right partner to be with, to be able to have that experience. Because if you've got one person doing one thing and somebody else doing something else, and that doesn't work. We both know that. But if somebody can help guide sometimes, because they've had that kind of education, and they can be kind about it, and really get somebody to the place of joyfulness, where it's not this isn't just about sex. This isn't, I think that that's so important. And I think that you're right. Tell me about masturbation. I'm sure that you get asked lots of questions about masturbation. And I think that there's a lot of things about masturbation that people don't talk about, because they still feel ashamed, and they just don't accept it as a natural act, and that our bodies need it. And it's a great release. All of those good things. What are some of the biggest issues that you hear about masturbation?
the thing is that so many people are embarrassed in talking about sex that anything to do with sex, including masturbation, is something that's hidden. It's not a socially acceptable behavior. And yet it's the most natural thing for children even to do.
Yeah.
One time I had a friend whose son was, about 3 or 4 years old at the time. And she just happened to glance down at him and he's playing around with his penis and she's like, oh my God. And she's like, Jacqui, I didn't know what to do. What should I do? And so I said to her, well, it's a very normal thing. We are curious about our bodies, and if something feels nice, we're even more curious about that nice feeling that's related to that.
Right.
And so it's a matter of saying, well, hey, Carlos, it's okay that you're wanting to do this, but not everybody is going to understand that you're doing that for you.
Right.
And so this is something for you to do.
Or do they want to watch you do that?
Yeah.
So that's
we're talking to a 4-year-old here. So
everybody wants to watch you do that. Yeah.
In a way that was understandable to him. It's
right.
Okay for you to do that at home. When you're at home, that's okay. But when we have visitors or when we're out at kindy or at school, then that's not the ideal place.
Right. Exactly.
And she just put it into a 4-year-old terminology
right.
so that he could understand that.
Yeah.
And so this is 4-year-old, normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're curious. We're naturally curious about our bodies. We're naturally curious about where babies come from. We're naturally curious about sex. And the more parents try to hide these things, the less natural it is for us. And of course, the more curious we are about it.
Of course.
Yeah. So anything that resistance, and it comes back to that resistance again, the resistance that parents have and which adults have to talking about sex creates that resistance between the teens who want to know about it and they're not getting the answers that they need. So they're having to go everywhere else to try and find those answers.
Right.
Now, you may hear that masturbation can lead to erectile dysfunction. Yes and no. It's more a fact that that masturbation is a one-person program. Yeah, it's nothing to do with a partner.
Right.
Whereas sexual intercourse is with a partner. It requires different points of focus. It needs different points of awareness. It needs different actions.
Exactly.
For example, a male who's constantly masturbating and remains single up until he's 40, well, masturbation is exercising his arm, but it's not retaining the strength and integrity of his penis.
No, absolutely.
So he would need a strengthening exercise to restore the structural support to that area, and then know how to turn his key on.
Yeah.
And then start the process.
Absolutely. Well, we could just talk forever. You've got so much, to share. And I think this is a subject that everybody needs to hear. And I just, tell me if you give me a word of wisdom that you want to say to the audience, like if they're having problems, where should they seek help and that kind of thing. All
right. Well, the thing is, don't put it off and hope that it will resolve itself. It won't resolve itself until your brain's receiving the right signals, and then it's like easy. But if you're not giving your brain the right signals, or if you're giving your brain confused signals, then your brain's like, you want that or you want that. It's like, is it? No. Just give me some clear signals. Yeah. Yes. So you need to know how to give your brain those clear signals. I have an ideal thing to get everyone started. I have the 5 crucial rules of sex, which you can sign up for on my website, which is endtheproblem.com.
Endtheproblem.com. I love it. Easy to remember.
If you want to look at my programs or also look at the programs or work one-on-one, however you want to go about solving the problem or preventing the problem for your teens. endtheproblem.com/programs. You can also access that from the menu, and it just gives some insights about my programs, and you can access that 5 crucial rules of sex right there. There's a male version and there's a female version.
Oh, good.
And it's just going to go through some of those insights which will start getting you on track to ending the problem or to preventing it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. And I love the story behind it. Not that I love the fact that you had to go through that, but I think that having to has gotten you to where you are today. And that's a real ambassador, that's somebody and an educator that is really helping others that need it so desperately.
Oh,
so
yes.
So thank you so much for that. And I want to thank the audience again for joining us today. If you're interested in being on WBTVN's Expert Spotlight Show, please go to WBTVN.tv. There's a form there. You can fill it out and we'll get back to you. So until the next time, everyone, have a healthy life with great sex and with the right partner, and learn to accept that this is healthy for us. So all is good. Thank you so much, Jacqui, for being on the show today.
You're welcome, Shay. It's a pleasure being here.